The richest country in the world has stopped getting rich. The cause of this is a coronavirus. Even before the large-scale quarantine in the United States began, the world's largest economy stumbled, and the longest 10-year recovery phase in its history came to an end. In the first quarter, U.S. GDP shrank by 4.8% year-on-year, the first estimate published on Wednesday showed. Economists have no doubt that this is not a one-time failure, and 6 months of decline in the American economy are guaranteed. After all, the main damage from the quarantine will be caused just in the second quarter, April, May and June. Its results will be announced in the midst of campaigning for the November presidential election, in which Donald Trump expects to be re-elected for a second term. So far, its main trump card has been a strong economy. The coronavirus has confused all the cards. The IMF predicts the world's worst crisis since the Great Depression. At the best, the coronavirus has destroyed China's economy. The rest of the world will be next. The crisis in Europe will be even worse than the global one. If the EU is to pour the fire with money, the US is not alone in its suffering. The world's third economy, China, shrank by 6.8% in the first quarter after nearly 50 years of growth at a rate of up to 15% a year. And the world's second largest economy, the European Union, is expecting an even bigger downturn. Poor countries are in an even worse position. The rich are withdrawing capital from there, depriving them of funds for development, and their main products, raw materials and components, are becoming cheaper because of falling demand in developed markets. One collapse of the oil market brought several commodity-producing countries to their knees. When will it be fixed? The results of the first Chinese quarter give an idea of what to expect for Americans. The epidemic swept them a few weeks after the Chinese outbreak. Now the United States is firmly ranked first in the number of infections and deaths. Economists expect a rebound in the second half of the year, but are confident that it will not fully compensate for the decline. In addition, recovery directly depends on how long the quarantine will last and how quickly the U.S. will return to normal life. And here all the forecasters' maps confuse two wandering variables, the virus and politics. The decision to ease the quarantine will be made by politicians in an election year. The virus has struck at the heart of Trump's election campaign, and he is eager to return the economy to growth. Last week, he promised an incredible recovery from the downturn, but admitted that it should not be expected until the last quarter. That is, after the election. The first estimate of GDP will be published only at the end of January. The results of Trump's first term: has America become richer? More Americans died from coronavirus than in 20 years of the Vietnam War. Trump's supporters, housewives and far-right activists. Who organizes protests against quarantine in the United States? But all these forecasts are based on the calculation of an early and decisive victory over the virus and do not take into account the danger of the second wave. If it happens, the return to production and accumulation of wealth cannot be dreamed of. The extent of the decline in the event of a repeat of the pandemic in the autumn-winter can be judged by the latest forecast of the International Monetary Fund. The IMF believes that the world economy, which reached $87 trillion last year, will miss $9 trillion, even if it returns to growth next year. And the second wave will increase the bill for treatment to several tens of trillions. The decline in revenue due to falling business activity is compounded by a surge in spending. The U.S. has already allocated almost $3 trillion to fight the virus and support businesses and people affected by the quarantine. To finance all this, the world's largest debtor will have to increase its budget deficit and borrow heavily.